Hello everyone, welcome to night 34. I said night 33 on the internet, but tonight is night 34 of the Orphan Tales Live quarantine reading series. It's been that kind of day. The first thing I did this morning was trip in the kitchen and dump a bowl of fresh eggs from our chickens all over the floor and myself, and then have to clean up all that yolk. And it's just gotten better from here on out. So my drink of choice tonight is not even in a fancy bottle. It's just a White Claw. It's not even a good flavor. It's the gross lime flavor, which tastes like cleaner. But I hear drinking cleaner makes you feel better. So see how that goes. So I don't know. World keeps dragging on being crap. Love the crap world. We're all in. Thumbs up for that. It's so weird watching television now, like just people they have birthday parties and they stand so close together and I get afraid for them, and it's such a strange thing. We're listening to Lizzo today, which we used to listen to all the time because my kid loves it, and it just seems like another world which was just like 2 months ago, where she was top of the charts and seemed to speak to experience, and now like I don't know, her music seems too happy. It's a strange world. Fortunately, we're going to go somewhere way less strange and read about griffins and weird people with mouths in their stomachs. Let's do our intro bit. That's paused due to poor connection. Sorry about that. We have a snowstorm incoming. It's May. Just to make everything even more perfect. Snowstorm. So yeah, intro stuff. So you can find music based on these books at sjtucker.com. You can buy these books at your local independent bookseller through their website. They're all struggling right now. Please patronize them if you can. My local independent bookseller is printbookstore.com if you would like to support them. You can follow me on Twitter at Cat Valenti. You can subscribe to my Patreon, which is also Cat Valenti. There's my recipe for the best cheeseburger in the world up there right now, for everybody at all levels. But we've just hit a new reward scheme, so everything is all kind of shiny and new over there at the moment. It's a good time to subscribe. You can ask questions after the feed, after the read. The feed of the read, the read of the feed. I've had a day. I apologize for any loopiness. So you can ask questions, but I hate sitting here awkwardly sipping a White Claw, even more than awkwardly sipping wine. So have your questions ready when I stop reading. You can catch up with the archive at Cat Valenti Live on YouTube. They tend to go up a couple hours after the reading ends here. And you can leave a tip in the tip jar on my Instagram profile or my YouTube profile or my website, which is catherinemvalenti.com. These are absolutely free. You don't have to tip me. But if you are so moved to toss a coin to your witch, everything's stupid and our toaster oven broke. And being a freelancer is no fun at all right now. So if you're moved to do so, I will thank you by name in the next stream. And I think that is everything. I always forget something though, so the likelihood is I forgot something. All right, well, let's get started. We're really getting towards the end here. We've got about 80 pages left to go, which is really like 8 or 9 days of reading. So we'll be done with this book and I suppose on to the next one in the series. Really thought this was going to be over sooner. Okay, let's get it started in here. And the griffin keep running. All right, the tale of the griffin and the king continued. I was unimpressed by the griffin's display of sentiment. Bakaim had tears in his eyes, and the two were clearly tight as a king and his eye over the memory of this village witch. Jin the anchorite must have known you would remember her. She must have meant for you to help me. Give me your talent so that I may kill the Yi that possesses my love and give her peace. I beg you. Take it from your hind paw so that you are still fierce, but give me a talon. Jin cocked his head to one side, for a moment ridiculously like a chicken contemplating strewn corn in a yard. Why should I sever a piece of my own body so that you can borrow it? I do not grow new talons if one is ripped from my footpad. Would it not be simpler for me to carry you on my back to Shidukium? I will kill your Yi for you myself. A claw through the eye is easy enough, and I will see Gyota again. My heart longs to see how her dress has grown. The monopod leapt to his foot and shouted his assent over the howl of the mountain wind. The two were quite prepared to disembark at that very moment without a thought for me, who had carried the selfish cripple all the way to the summit. I cleared my throat loudly, and both fools turned to stare at me as though I had suddenly appeared in a puff of magic smoke. For a moment, the three of us simply stood, blinking stupidly. Finally, Jin, for I suppose, since I know the mangy bird's name, I should use it, rose to his full height and shook his feathers clean of gold fibers from his nest. He was larger than I had suspected, dwarfing the elephants I had killed with my hunting mates, and his feathers were so blue they seemed to leach the color from the sky. Take it from the nest, Aramaspian dog. Take it from the nest, and I will not stop you. But swear to me that you will never return to the Red Mountain, and that your people will never again trouble me for my gold. Swear it on your ocular, on your roomy, stinking world eye, and you may have the rest. I smiled beautifully, and my teeth glistened in the sun. I swear it. By the ocular and the world eye, neither I nor any of my race will come near to you again. Jin nodded curtly and seized Kayam by the grimy collar of his vest and swung the poor man onto his broad turquoise back. Snorting in derision, he leapt from the peak, and I was left alone with Kayam's ecstatic farewells echoing in the fierce wind. I knelt and began to collect the glittering straws of the griffin's nest, but my mind was full of the white beast, Kuri, and visions of my sons festooned in her gold. The tale of St. Sigrid continued. Oluwakim grinned hungrily at me. And this is where we steer your ship now. To the white beast in the center of the boiling sea, the searing sea, the last of all the griffin, and we will take the gold we need. I will forge a new ocular for my heir, and we will have victory finally over those not blessed by the world eye. Sigrid sat back, stunned. She pulled nervously at the frayed ends of her hair. What happened to Kayam? Did he and Jin kill his Yi? I hear the Yi are terrible creatures. They've never come to Ajanab, thank all the stars in the sky. The king of the Aramaspians shrugged impatiently. When I forged my ocular in the fires of Ob, I glanced toward Shidukium, out of curiosity, no more, and saw the rotting body of his Tova safe in the earth, so I suppose they must have done as they planned. It matters nothing to me what a chicken and a cripple accomplished. Jin is dead. This I saw as well with some satisfaction. Kayam I have not bothered to seek out again. Only the white beast matters, only the gold. Very softly, casting her eyes toward the floor and praying that he would not become angry with her, Sigrid ventured, Surely, you see that if you destroy this last griffin, there will be no more ocular for any of your sons. Why not let her live to birth chicks and ensure the supply of gold for future generations? Aha, she has laid her eggs already, clever Sigrid. This is why we must go now, so that we may catch her before she has hatched them, and harvest the precious yolk. As for the race of griffin, they robbed us of our horses. No longer are we a clan that can expand our borders, riding swiftly over the steppes with 4 legs instead of 2. We must beg and steal colts from neighbors. And the colts are weak and sickly. They do not thrive. The griffin deserves extinction. We will ration the bounty of the white beast so that the ocular survives, but I will not let her live. Wait. Noble king of the Ulua, why are you questing for the griffin's gold? If the new ocular is for your son, why does he not charter the maidenhead and hunt Kuri himself? At this, the king scowled and blushed at the same moment, his face turning purple with rage or shame. Sigrid could not tell. And within herself she quailed in fear of the giant man. But when he spoke, his voice was small and soft, almost a whisper. I have no son, young Sigrid. It is the shame of my house. At first we thought it was a blessing. Since the griffin took their revenge on our women, we have had few maidens among us. But from the day I swore to let Jin have his wretched Airy, no man of the Alua has sired a boy. Only girls, acres and acres of daughters, each one more beautiful than the last, and none of them able to take the ocular. We understand now that it is a curse, and our passion to destroy the griffin has redoubled. It is against our law, the mandate of the eye, to allow a female to rule us. We've waited as long as we could, praying, sacrificing oxen, so that the eye would allow some lesser Alua at least to sire on his woman a son. And now there are no Alua sons. These men you see are from other families, and though they cower in my presence if the Alua do not bestow the ocular on an heir, they will seize the kingship for one of their own. I decreed to preserve the sacred mandate of heaven, which by right belongs only to my blood, that my eldest daughter would receive the golden eye this very winter. The king straightened his glossy back and spoke loudly then, his rich voice booming in the cabin. But it is not seemly for a girl child to quest or to kill. The honor of the last griffin hunt must belong to a man. Thus I have taken the burden of the hunt in the name of the fair Olua Funmike, who will be queen. In her name I will slaughter the white beast and forge the golden eye. Alone of all the kings, I will brave the fires of Og twice. The men around him, with their many-colored eyes, bowed and scraped their allegiance and praised the name of Olua Funmike. Sigrid hid her disgust and resolved silently to help the poor griffin if she could when they arrived, even if Tommy and the rest were obligated to allow their passenger to do as they pleased. Sigrid, you listen well. In a woman this is a kind of beauty, even if you have breasts like a cow's udder and your skin is pale and unhealthy. You will have the honor of serving me until we reach the boiling sea. If you perform well, I will make you a pretty trinket from the gold we harvest. You may rejoice. Few who are not of the oculos are allowed so near my person. Sigrid knew not to argue, though her stomach lurched in rebellion, and she bowed low. In her heart, she fashioned a tiny prayer that Olua Funmike was wiser and kinder than her father, and sent it up to the stars, for she knew of no other place to aim. But you may go and sleep now, girl, so that you will be fresh for tomorrow's work. I am a good master. I do not expect my attendants to display heroics of endurance. Go and find the satyr woman. She will bed you well. Gratefully, Sigrid left the audience of the king, still bowing as she closed the heavy door of the cabin behind her. The pale girl's tale continued. Snow had finished her day's netting. A pile of damp gray rope had risen up neatly beside her, and the foreman had pressed 2 coins into her hand, barely enough to fill her belly for the night. The last of Sigrid's much larger nets still trailed from her hands like silver umbilici, the knots skillful and small, catching the last light in their tight twists. But at length Sigrid, too, finished her tasks and collected her pay, many more and larger coins than the albino child had gotten. Snow screwed up her courage and looked up into Sigrid's creased face. I cannot bear to hear the end of your tale, she cried. Let me buy you a husk of bread or a mug of beer and tell me the rest. Sigrid laughed, her great body shaking like a walrus caught on a drifting ice floe. Child, you've barely enough in your hand to feed a sparrow. I'm surely parched from all this talking. How I do go on when I'm not interrupted. I won't take your meager wages. I shall do the buying, and I shall choose the tavern. Good enough? Snow nodded eagerly, and as the two walked along the quay, among glittering torches and warm-windowed inns full of rough laughter, she gently slipped her thin fingers into Sigrid's warm hand. She hoped the older woman, whom she now thought of as quite beautiful, would not mind. In answer, Sigrid squeezed her freezing fingers tenderly. At length they reached the end of the Muron Pier. The salt-scoured boards smoothed out into a well-maintained dirt road, the noise and bustle of the other seaside folk fading. There Sigrid stopped below a dilapidated sign which swung like a weathercock above a windowless tavern. The sign was painted oddly, with a rough image of a muscled arm grasping a fat, squirming fish by the tail. Below this strange insignia, a sign read, The Arm and Trout. Here we are, girl. Best in town, I promise. She pushed open the heavy oak door, and they slipped inside a tavern much quieter than any Snow had seen. It was terribly dark and smoky. Pipes sent up tendrils everywhere. A few tables were scattered about the floor, which seemed to have far more than 4 corners, peopled with shadowy figures she could not quite make out. but they shrunk away from the open door. The bar itself was a decrepit slab of what might once have been cherry wood, but had petrified over the years. It was slightly uneven, and patrons clutched their mugs and tankards to keep them from sliding to the floor. Wedged behind the bar was a great hulk of a man, who looked as though some giant had simply dropped an armful of limbs into a heap. He brandished a thick rag like a sword, and the rusted iron of his eyes dared anyone to order a drink. His hair was the color of sandy shoals that trapped the hulls of ships. His hands were the size of well-wrought drums, and he smelt of lamp oil and brine. Sigrid marched directly to the ramshackle bar and slapped her thick coins on the stained wood. "Evening, Eyvind. Beer for me, spiced wine for the little one." Eyvind grunted assent and busied himself with the drinks, turning his back to them. Snow saw that Sigrid did not take her eyes from his hulking back while he worked, seeming to linger on his enormous frame as though trying to memorize it. When he turned back, she drew her eyes back like a thief caught with her hands full of pocket watches. Sigrid collected both drinks and settled herself at a small table that gave a wide view of the rest of the tavern. She pushed the wine toward Snow and smirked with satisfaction as the girl swallowed it down. It warmed her from the roots of her colorless hair to the tips of her shivering toes. Specialty of the house. This is the Arm. It's where those of us who are, well, slightly off the map of Muron come. Look around, love. Here they are monsters. Snow saw that the figures huddled at their tables were not so shapeless as they had seemed. Under a woolen hood, one had the beak of a pelican, another's webbed legs were tucked under his chair. Each drink the Arm had served was attached to some fabulous creature, some on all fours against the back wall, drinking from a trough. In the dim light of the rusted chandelier, Snow thought she could make out the shapes of creatures at least half animal, and some men on all fours slurping happily beside their bestial brethren. She could not be sure that she did not spy a djinn sitting on a cushion of smoke near the back door. Some of the faces were human, but their eyes belied their features. Even Eyvind seemed to be different, his movements not quite manlike. Not for the first time, she wondered if her new friend was indeed all she appeared to be. It is the only place we feel welcome, the only place we belong. Eyvind keeps the place, turns no one away. It is a kindness. The Muroners leave us alone, so long as we hide ourselves away. There are 2 Shadukiums, there are 2 Murons. Maybe Alinor is the only city which does not have two of itself. But maybe not even Alinor. But we were not yet returned to my city, were we? We were on the Maidenhead, with St. Sigrid in her bunk, sharing blankets with a satyr. The tale of St. Sigrid continued. Sailors of the Maidenhead, despite the apparently endless amount of room below decks, slept 2 to a bunk. It was draughty in their quarters, and the doubling up kept them warm, besides which the habit among them was to pair a senior woman to a more inexperienced girl and trust that one would educate the other in all she needed to know of the running of the ship and a life of piracy. Eshkol and Sigrid huddled under their blankets in the damp and cold of any bed at sea, though beneath her fur Eshkol seemed to not feel it at all. Sigrid shivered and was restless. The ship rocked and creaked much more than a barge. She could not find comfort in the constant rocking and lurching. "You get used to it," Eshkol laughed quietly. "It took me months to be able to sleep without solid ground under me. Some of the other girls take to it like bees to a hive. It's different for everyone." Sigrid held the gray blanket over her head with tented fingers, studying her companion's face. It was soft and friendly, and the woman seemed to be made entirely of shades of brown, like the trunk of a tree. Her hair and fur were deep as earth, her skin tan and tawny, her eyes nearly black. "How long till we reach the boiling sea? I imagine it'll be much worse then. Will the Maidenhead survive the water?" "Ah, the maid's all manner of magic. Comes from being born, not built, you know. That and the stars' tears. Don't you worry, a little hot salt water won't even chip the paint. We should reach the edges of it by morning." Sigrid sighed and tried to shift to a better position on the wooden bunk. "How did you come to be here, Eshkol? Did they kidnap you too? Surely the captain can't steal all her crew. Seems like that would take a great deal of time." Eshkol laughed again, a sound like damp leaves falling into a swift running creek. No. I came aboard of my own will. I volunteered." She propped herself up on one elbow. "I'm not tired either. I don't mind telling the tale. It'll pass the hours till dawn. And we will start the tale of the satyr and the selkie tomorrow. It's definitely one of my favorite parts of the book. So I want to be able to have it an unbroken chunk. So we'll end just a teensy bit early. So Eyvind is back, and the Armentrout, which long ago I explained to you guys, is is just a joke about a teacher I used to have whose name was Ray Armentrout. And if any of you are big experimental poetry fans, you may recognize that she is way more famous than I had any idea of when she was my teacher. But she was very hard on me. But in a good way that I think did me in good stead as a writer. She gave me an extremely stern talking to about fantasy genre cliches that put the fear of God in me early on. But her name always sounded like a pub to me, like, well, let's get some points at the Armentrout. And so I put the Armentrout in there. As I said, I was 22, so I was less than, I was about a year and a half out of her class. But I think the Satyr and the Selkie are fan favorites too. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a wonderful SJ song that I have refrained from playing in the beginning so far because it's spoilery. But a wonderful SJ Tucker song to go with it never hurts. But I am very, very fond of my Satyr and my Selkie. It's a boy Selkie. I don't just gender swap to girls. I have never in my life read a story of a boy Selkie, except occasionally someone whose mother was a Selkie, so they're half or something like that. But it's usually a girl's story. So I swapped that, and we'll get to it tomorrow. So does anybody have any questions while I sip on my White Claw? Yay, I'm glad you bought the album. It's a wonderful album. SJ does some readings on it too. And the second album is great too. They're fantastic. I remember so clearly, I don't always remember where I was when I first heard SJ songs that were based on my books, but I remember the first one because she was staying in my house. But I remember the Firebird's Child, which is on the second album, because I was stuck at a resort in the Pennsylvania mountains. I was driving to a convention, and I got stuck in, like, you can Google this, it's a real thing that really happened. I got stuck in the 24-hour traffic jam, which backed up half the length of the state. And at the time it was snowing. Nobody knew what was happening. Like, really, it was so baffling. And it was at a time like before smartphones or anything. So like I was texting my mother trying to get her to look on the internet and see like if this was going to end. Because like we were stopped and hours went by, hours and hours went by. I pulled up my laptop and plugged it into the cigarette lighter. I started playing Doctor Who episodes because we just weren't moving at all. And then people would start to run out of gas and it would get worse. And people were like coming on snowmobiles, bringing supplies for babies. And this was like 9-10 hours just not moving at all on the highway. It was so strange. And then we finally sort of inched up on an exit and everybody got off on the exit at Whitehaven, Pennsylvania, which is where Liz Lemon's from. Which was a nowhere town, but it turned out that because of all of this, they hadn't had supplies in for 3 days because of the snowstorm. So there was no food at any of the hotels or anything. And the only place that had a room was like this sort of Poconos resort. And so my mother sent me money so that I could stay there. I absolutely couldn't afford that room. And I got the drunkest I've ever gotten because nobody had any food. Everybody had alcohol, nobody had food. And the next morning, completely hungover, snowed in. We'd been told we wouldn't be allowed to leave for at least 3 days. And what had actually happened was that they had cut funding to the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation so severely that a semi had gotten stuck horizontally across the road, and there was literally nobody to call to come clear it because they'd just laid everybody off to budget cuts. Thank you, Republicans. So I remember the next morning, hungover, sitting in the lobby of that place listening to Firebird's Child on my headphones, and it's just such a rousing song. It'll warm you top to bottom, and I was pretty worried, so it definitely warmed my heart up. Is my teacher aware of the tribute? No, and I don't think she would care, or she might not like it at all. She's not a speculative fiction person, even a little bit, and I don't think she would necessarily find it complimentary to be featured in a fantasy book. I said she was hard on me in a good way, and I admire her greatly. But she's not a big supporter of the SFFs. So I don't know if she'd appreciate it. So I'm not going to be the one to tell her. She's scary. But yeah, who knows? She's probably retired by now. It's been ages. Weirdly enough, she made us go see a writer come to read at UC San Diego, who is now faculty at UC San Diego. And I just saw on Amazon like a series based on her book, which is called not my teachers, but this other woman who is now a teacher at in the same department. The book's called I Love Dick, and it's a series on Amazon. Just like nope, do not like any of that. But then I know I turned out to be a filthy genre writer, so what do I know? Oh, I'm just babbling about people now that you don't know or care about. But yeah, I don't. Ray, I don't think Dr. Armentrout knows, and I don't think that I don't think she'd like it. Oh well, not everyone's complimented by homage and tribute. But she might. Who knows? Who knows? I haven't talked to her in years. I haven't talked to her since I was in her class. There's some of my teachers I have kept in touch with, and some I have not. Anybody have any other questions? Well, I will do my outro stuff. If you think of questions, you can just type them into the box and I will get to them after I finish my spiel. For legal reasons, as always, this is not an audiobook of The Orphan's Tales. It is a play. You can find music based on these books at sjtucker.com. You can buy copies of them from your independent local booksellers. Almost all of them are still taking web orders. Please support those businesses. My local bookseller is printbookstore.com if you would like to support them. You can follow me on Twitter at Kat Valenti. You can subscribe to my Patreon, which is all full of new shiny reward schemes at Kat Valenti as well. You can leave a tip in the tip jar on my Instagram profile or my YouTube profile or my website, which is katherinevalenti.com. You don't have to, but if you are so moved, it would be amazing and deeply helpful for our household. And I will thank you by name on the next stream, unless you don't want me to, in which case I won't. So I just want to say thank you for keeping an archive at YouTube. Yeah, I mean, it was a little tough in the beginning, and I still think I'm not using Instagram right. But it's all up on YouTube. I know everybody needed a way to watch it easily. My eyes keep going like this because the full moon is coming up just over there, and it's so huge and so bright. It looks like somebody must have a window open across the street, but it's not. It's just the moon coming up. It's incredible. Oh, and I'm going to be reading more different on Instagram Live. I'm going to be reading my story, A Perfect Host, which came out on Serial Box a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to be reading it at Serial Box Pub on May 12th at 8 o'clock. So we may have to push this back or forward to make room for that. But I'm going to be reading that. It is my pandemic story. It's got to be the fastest I turned trauma into art. But I'm looking forward to that. So you guys can come see me read that story too. What is inspiring and influencing me these days? Inspiration is thin on the ground at the moment. At the moment, writing's not always about inspiration. Sometimes it's just about finishing the hat, as Sondheim would say. And at the moment, I'm just holding on to the project that I'm working on and the projects that are due, and just trying to complete that. I'm not looking to be inhabited by the muse. I'm just looking to do the work. Influencing me, I mean, if I'm not watching my kid or writing a book, or talking to you, I'm definitely playing Animal Crossing at this point. And one would not like to think that that is overly influential, but it probably is a little bit. I've been, as I said, I've said on the last stream, I've been watching this show, Dark, which definitely has gotten some gears moving in my head. I started a new short story the other day. Not even one that has a home yet, just out of the blue, which was nice. I haven't done that in a lot of years. Usually I only write short stories when I'm specifically asked to. Who are some of my favorite visual artists? Oh, goodness. Frida Kahlo comes immediately to mind, Leonora Carrington. I love Magritte, the old surrealists. I mean, how are we defining visual art? God, I cannot stop looking at the moon. It is absolutely incredible. You probably see it reflected in my eyes. Yeah, no, the visual artists are amazing, and I love Michael Kaluta's illustrations for this, Anna Wan's illustrations for Fairyland. I've actually, it's kind of a treat to get to discover artists through them getting hired to work on my books, because I get such a personal introduction to their work. Kathleen Jennings is amazing. Galen Dara is doing just gorgeous covers these days. But you know, I'm a big surrealist girl, so really any of the surrealists tend to really excite me as far as traditional painting. Yeah. I'm sure that, you know, when those kinds of questions, my brain immediately says, I don't even know what visual art is. It just refuses to do it. I've had over the years to come up, I've not been asked that before. I have like a set answer for some of these questions because I've been asked so many times and my mind instantly goes blank no matter how many times I've been asked that question before. So I've had to like memorize some answers. Not that they're not true answers, but just because I know that my brain has that tendency to just short out when asked to give a list of anything. Do I read webcomics? I used to read a lot of webcomics, and I have not been of late. I like Nathan Pyle's little alien comics. I forget what they're called. But other than that, like, I mean, I just haven't been following the way I used to. I used to read like 8 or 10 of them regularly. I knew what day they updated every week, and I wrote a webcomic, but I have really fallen off of that in a bad way. Like, the whole pregnancy thing really disrupted all of my media consumption because I had to, I don't know if you guys know, I have ADD. I had to be off my meds for like the whole pregnancy and then nursing as well. So like I had a horrible time concentrating on anything. Books, I couldn't sit through a whole movie. Strange Planet is the name of Nathan Pyle's comic. A whole TV show was really rough to ask. So like I stopped consuming a lot of things for like 17 months while I was going through all of that because my brain just couldn't focus on it. And like all my productivity slowed down. Turns out like ADD is a whole serious thing, and if you don't have medication for it, like your brain falls apart. So I fell apart for like 17 months. And you know, pregnancy also, like I just read this study that you actually lose gray matter when you're pregnant. Like you have brain damage, you lose brain matter, and it grows back, but only when around the time the kid is 2 are you back to what you were before, which feels about right to me. I still don't feel like I'm 100% sort of what I was mentally before, but I'm getting there. So yeah, like I lost a lot of my patterns of like checking webcomics and you know, all the sort of subscription based stuff that I used to do, and man, I've even kind of stopped crafting, which I used to do constantly. I should probably get back to it, but now I'm too stressed out about the world to craft. So yeah, no, I feel bad because I used to really love webcomics and I got a lot of pleasure out of it, and I just haven't read them for a long time, other than Strange Planet. Do we have time for one more question if anybody has one, or I will sign off and go outside and look at the moon, which is like a stoplight out there. It's just incredible. It's bright yellow too. It's like not white at all. It's like a rind of cheese. Yeah, I just cannot stop looking at it. It's amazing. Where I'm looking on the other side of the phone is this huge, like this bank of windows, so I can sort of see out into the neighbor's yard. We used to have a fence, blew down in a hurricane. True story. All right. Well, I will see you guys tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Same fairy tale time, same fairy tale channel. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I surely do love spending it with you. As Mr. Rogers said, I like you just the way you are. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.